Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Professor Natalie Games. I'm Dr. Natalie Van Duzen. I'm a professor at the University of Alberta, and I am a researcher who specializes in Old Norse literature, language, and culture. And I am here and I am reacting to God of War Ragnarok, and more specifically, the Valhalla DLC, with gameplay by the always amazing Cleansed in Fire. And I'm so glad to be back. I am very appreciative as well that you are back here with me, that you're still watching my videos, even though I took a few months off there. And thank you so much for all of your comments and your questions. I hope I answered all of them. I just went through to make sure that there was nothing that I hadn't responded to. So if I haven't responded to you, I'm sorry, and just give me a nudge, and I promise to be sure to circle back. But I did get a couple questions about my own research. So my own research, as academic research tends to be, is really, really niche. So I specialize, as you know, in Old Norse literature, language, and culture. But specifically within that area, I look at religious literature and I look at topics of gender and disability within Old Norse religious literature. And I'm interested specifically in literature that was translated from Latin into Old Norse and the ways in which that literature was adapted. So it was not always, and in many cases, it rarely ever was, a direct translation. So oftentimes, scribes were working with Latin sources and they would redact things, they would abbreviate things, they would expand upon them. And I'm often interested in looking at what kind of that editorial process on their part can then in turn tell us about Old Norse society and specifically topics such as gender and disability. So right now I have a big research grant that I was just awarded by the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. We often abbreviate it just to SHIRK, which is why saying it out loud is a bit of a mouthful. But it's a project to look at the representation of the story of Helena, the mother of Constantine the Great, as it appears in various works of Old Norse literature, because her story, which was really, really important in medieval Christendom, is scattered throughout kind of the Old Norse vernacular literary corpus, both in prose and poetry. So I got a research grant to look at how all of these sources relate to one another, and the picture that they painted this really important noblewoman who was held up as a model for royal women throughout Christian Europe. So in the past, I've written books on the saints in Old Norse and early modern Icelandic poetry. I have done editions and translations of different sagas that are religious literature, and I've written a whole bunch of articles that have to do with a variety of topics. Most of them having to do, like I said before, with gender. So I've written about gender roles and how some of the literature that's been translated from Latin reflects these things. I've also written on topics such as female friendship in the sagas, and and I've also written on how disability, or what we would today describe as disability, is represented in the Old Norse literary corpus. So trying to provide some insight into the lives of people who are generally understudied in history. So that is what I do in a nutshell in the, I guess, now 13 years since I got my PhD. And for me, I just feel so lucky to be able to come on here and make a connection between what it is that I have expertise in and what it is that so many people are interested in and that I also am interested in, namely video games, and try to give you a little bit of context, maybe bring something that you haven't thought about before, or give you a little bit of a different idea or perspective on the game that I know that you all love. So, with that being said, let's get back to it. And I thought that in this one, we would get through a few different chapters that Cleansed in Fire has put together for us. So I thought we would do Mimir's backstory, the fate of the realms, Eir's backstory, and Gunnr's backstory. And that will then leave us, at least within this segment, with Sigrun and Mimir. So with that being said, let's get to it.
What did you say about a forest? You remember being elsewhere when Helios took your place.
Aye. Yes, I didn't mention that while we were plummeting, but yes, I was in a forest, much like that of my youth. Back on my old body, too. It was a bit dreamlike, to be honest.
Do you wish to return there?
I can't say I don't. I'm concerned, but I'm more than curious. Guess my memories are fair game in here as well. Don't suppose they'll just stick to the pleasant ones, will they?
Unlikely. Did Valhalla return you to your forest last time?
Aye, brother. And this time I wasn't alone.
Were you attacked?
No, far from it. Apparently my Valhalla isn't the stuff of constant combat at all. The memories of mine it draws on are more interpersonal. To wit, I found myself reliving old times with my former crew of fairy folk. Cobweb, mustard seed, the whole pack of ne'er-do-wells. Such warm greetings for their old ringleader, like nary a day had passed.
Sounds pleasant.
Rather was, to be honest. I remain suspicious, but if this process is doing something for you, I remain open to seeing what it has in mind for me. Before you ask, yes, I was back in my old forest again. And this time I encountered my former boss, King Oberon. Rather eye-opening, actually. I used to be a true believer for him. Would have done anything he asked. But now I see through all that charisma and feigned wisdom, down to the small, hypocritical tyrant I know him to be. Wait till I tell you what he put me up to regarding a particular magical flower.
You wish to tell a story of your first master?
Aye. Seems to be the very story Valhalla has me reliving, in fact. Oberon fancied himself a romantic, you see. Always claimed that love was more important to him than anything. One time, he led his entire entourage on a journey to attend the wedding of some duke or other, near your old neck of the woods. The groom, this lordly prick, had conquered a warrior queen and was marrying her as part of terms for peace. And this somehow was so romantic to Oberon that he dragged us across the sea to pay respects. Never mind, he was quarreling with his own queen the entire way! Well, I'll have more of that one, to be sure. As I was saying about my old master and his lofty, so-called romantic ideals, we'd settled in a forest outside of Athens, a place well situated to observing the comings and goings of the Duke's other guests. There we observe the romantic complications of some local youths, and Oberon gets it into his head to intervene. Bids me fetch him a magical flower that can manipulate the affections of others. Supposedly, the idea was to nobly help true love prevail over the pressure of family arrangements. But what he really wanted was to use the flower to torment his own wife.
I see why you left his service.
Aye. Rather, while I'd love to say I left Oberon's service as a matter of principle, the truth is, it was much more a question of pride. If he'd simply shown me more appreciation, who knows how long I might have tolerated his evils. I certainly tolerated plenty from my subsequent employers before I could take no more. If I'm being honest, I was only too happy to offer my complicity in Queen Titania's humiliation.
What did you do?
I caused her to fall in love with something preposterous. An actor.
Your old master. He had you make his wife fall in love with another.
Aye, temporarily, by use of this magic flower. Though now it's clear to me the flower's effect isn't love exactly, but a kind of obsessive devotion that is too often mistaken for love. So of course the Queen made a fool of herself, as did all those under the flower's spell that night. Don't know how I ever got embroiled in such a farce.
You are wiser now.
I think so. Though that only makes up for so much past stupidity. Sigrid, I wanted to tell you, Valhalla keeps sweeping me away to my own adventure in memory.
I wondered if it would. That's wonderful. What is it showing you?
Some particular events of my wayward youth. But they're in a loop of sorts. Not sure I've quite gleaned what it all amounts to.
Then you must do what you do in Valhalla. Keep going.
The more that Valhalla makes me revisit my misadventures with Oberon, the more like a dream it all seems. Which is ironic. Back then in my youth, I could hardly bear to sleep. Then, with time, I came to value a proper night's rest. In captivity, it was nearly the only escape I knew. And then the need to sleep went away completely. And I don't miss the time lost. But damn it, brother. I do miss dreaming. The mind comes to terms with itself in ways only possible with your waking judgment out of the way. Our hidden desires, our anxieties, like a bifrost window to what's going on in your soul.
And Valhalla does the same.
Aye. And I don't think I realized how much I needed it. Brother, the last time Valhalla spirited me away to the forest, there was an interesting twist. As the revels ended, I found myself alone, still carrying the magic love flower, and I came upon a sleeping person. But it wasn't the queen, or the foolish youths. It was Sigrun, as I knew her before. I found myself faced with the proposition that with a few drops, I could make her care about nothing in the world so much as me.
What did you do?
I'm pleased to report that I crushed that flower with my bare hands.
I am glad to hear it.
Milady, how is Alfheim these days? Does the peace hold?
It's tenuous, but holding. Endless war tends to breed quite a bit of mistrust. Thankfully, the elves, Bela and Bigvir, are in positions of influence due to their association with Freyr and involvement in Ragnarok. It's the best chance at lasting peace the realm has ever had.
What about the findings in the Consul's journal? Have they shared it with the rest of the elves?
Not yet, but give them time.
What is the state of Svartalfheim?
It's been tough. The dwarves had been under Odin's thumb for so long. Now they're having to completely reshape their economy to provide for themselves again. Many are looking to Durlin and other outcast members of the old resistance for guidance. But thus far, he's refusing the call. The wounds are deep and will take time to heal. Once they do, Freya thinks Durlin would be a welcome addition to the council.
Sigrun, love, what's the latest on Midgard?
Life returns at last. After the Hellwalker desolation was followed by Fimbulwinter, I wondered if people would ever come out of hiding, or if there were any left to. But flowers bloom, the sun shines, and it's safe to travel the roads and rivers again. No one even seems to mind the giant serpent sunning himself across the mountaintops.
Glad to hear it. Jormungandr's a big softy when you get to know him.
And now that things aren't quite so desperate, raider attacks have declined. It's progress. I'm impressed by your progress, General. We've never seen anyone engage Valhalla quite the way you have.
Sigrun, how fare you and your sisters?
With just the three of us to attend to the fallen now, we're short-handed. But we've begun recruiting new shield maidens.
Well, I happen to know of one lass who'd jump at the chance to join your ranks.
You mean Thrud? Sif and Thor's daughter? Believe me, I know. She sought us out before the call even left our lips.
She fights well, and can be trusted.
A recommendation from you, General. With that, how could we ignore her? Not that she'd let us.
Sigrun, dear, as Kratos and I have been off the beaten path, so to speak, I'm curious as to the state of the realms.
Well, since my sisters and I returned to our old Valkyrie duties, the souls of the damned no longer find the gates of Helheim closed to them. So...
No more Hellwalkers spilling into the other realms? Grand!
I can't say no Hellwalkers are left in the realms, but there are fewer. Grasvelger seemed pleased. Or at least I think that's what her expression meant.
Sigrun, been wondering, are the remaining Vanir and Aesir playing nice in Vanaheim?
The Asgardian relocation hasn't exactly been smooth sailing. But Hildisvini and Lady Sif are keeping the ship headed in the right direction. The people seem to understand compromise is their best path to prosperity, at least.
Truth be told, I was hoping the old boar would have to call on me to smooth things over. But it's good to hear he and Sif have it under control.
Freya hopes they'll join the council once the peace settles.
No. I'd like to tell you a story that I think will help you along your path.
Go on.
Early in my life, before I was a Valkyrie, I was a healer in a small village. My father trained me in the use of herbs and natural remedies. To him, coming from a long line of herbal healers, that was the only true medicine. But visiting the city, I saw healers who used magic. Only magic, to treat their patients. I'd seen it work. And work wonders. I tried to tell my father, but he said mage healing was against his philosophy. A dangerous shortcut that violated tradition. Being a good daughter, I respected his convictions. But that all changed when he took ill. That's a good place to stop for now. When you're further along on your journey, I'll share the next part of my story. I'll tell you more of my story now, if you care to hear it.
Go ahead.
If you remember, my father had fallen ill. It was bad. An illness unknown to us. I offered to fetch the mage healer from the city, but my father refused. He insisted herbs were the only way to help him. You can guess what happened next. He was gone before the spring. I was devastated. In time, I grew to hate my father's philosophy and dedicated myself to healing through magic. It was a blind rejection of an entire field, because I believed it failed my father, because I blamed his death on his faith. The truth is, I traded one limiting perspective for another, but I wasn't ready to see that yet. That's a good place to stop for now. Would you care to hear more of my story?
I am listening.
If you remember, I had shunned my father's herbal medicine after it failed to save him. I left my village and moved to the city. I scraped and scrounged, managed to survive, and became an apprentice to a renowned mage healer. I soaked up everything I could from her, and I was a natural, it turns out. Shedding my father's legacy came easy. In fact, I'd acquired quite the distaste for it. I cut herbal medicine out of my life completely. It was this rigidness that would prove the biggest mistake of my life. But I'll stop there for now. I'll tell you the next part of my story now, if you'll listen.
Go on.
Last thing I told you was that I'd become an apprentice to a mage healer of renown. I learned much from her, not just about the healing arts, but about how to live a complete life, a whole life, true to yourself. She was like a mother to me, which made it all the more painful when she too fell ill. It was the same illness that had taken my father. But this time would be different. It was my chance to apply everything she taught me to try and save her. Anyway, I think that's a good place to pause my story. I can continue my story now.
Continue.
If you'll remember, my teacher had fallen ill. Everything she taught me, I poured into trying to save her. But it turned out mage healing wasn't enough. I realized that only a combination of mage healing and herbal traditions could save her. But I'd let my knowledge of the herbal arts fade away. And so, I failed her like I failed him. And she passed into Hell's embrace. It took a long time to get over that. Anyway, I'll stop here for now. I'd like to finish my story for you now.
Go on.
As you recall, I failed my teacher and wasn't able to save her life. I'd let my aversion to my father's traditions stop me from being able to adapt to circumstances. After that, I spent many winters reconstructing his teachings, integrating them into my arsenal. I realized how important it was for me to practice techniques that don't come easy to me, or even ones I have every reason to hate and reject. Because then I'm armed for everything. Then I can adapt to whatever life throws at me. Anyway, that's my story.
Thank you, Eir. I understand.
Okay, so before we get into Gunnr's backstory, I wanted to kind of go back and talk a little bit about Eir. I know I spoke about Eir before in God of War Ragnarok when we first encountered her, but I thought it was worthwhile to kind of remind you a little bit about what I said about her and kind of bring it all together within the context of the story that she has shared with us right here. So, Eir is a noun in Old Norse. It is a feminine noun that means either peace or clemency. It's typically used in poetry. And it is also the name of a goddess and a Valkyrie and another figure who appears in poetry. So, I'll talk about those three together. So, in the Poetic Edda, which is the kind of generally considered to be the older of the two sources, depending on what poem we're talking about. There's a poem called Fjölsvinnsmaul, or the Lay of Svipdagur. And here, Eir is named as one of the maidens who attends to a woman named Menglöð, who is a woman or a maiden that the hero Svipdagur attempts to woo and wed. And she's just kind of named in one stanza as one of those maidens who attends to Menglöð. So that is the first instance in which she is mentioned in the surviving mythology. She's mentioned twice in Snorri's Prose Edda. She's mentioned first in the section called Gylfaginning, or the deluding of Gylfi. And here is where Odin in disguise as High, Equally High, and Third tell all kinds of different things about the gods, the goddesses, and different parts of how the world was created, how it's going to end, all of these things. And there is a section relating specifically to goddesses in which she is named third among the different Ausinjur, or the goddesses, the female Aesir. And it simply says that there is a goddess named Eir, and she is the best of physicians. That's it. Later on in Snorri's Prose Edda, in a different section called Skaldskaparmál, or the language of poetry, she is named in a list of Valkyries. And interestingly, in this same section, there's another list of the Ausinjur, or the goddesses, and Eir is not one of those. So in one part of Snorri's Edda, she is a Valkyrie. In another part of Snorri's Edda, she is a goddess. So this just kind of goes to show that there is massive inconsistency even within individual sources, which of course makes it extremely difficult when we're trying to reconcile all these things. And it gives scholars a lot of things to talk about. So there's been some, various theories as to who she really is. So we'll continue on to Gunnr, and I'll talk a little bit about her after her backstory.
I hear you like stories. I got one for you.
I am listening.
I wasn't born with the privilege of some of my sisters in arms. I wasn't bred for greatness. I was just the daughter of some poor innkeeper. Matter of fact, I wasn't even his. He just raised me after somebody left me there. I didn't have much going for me, but I had one thing. I wasn't afraid of anyone. If somebody was asking for a punch in the face, I never thought twice. Brought a heap of trouble on myself that way, it's true. But I sure learned how to fight. Enough for now. I'll pick that up later.
Proceed.
So, there I was, little Miss Brawl Magnet. If I wasn't starting the fight, I was the first one charging in to join it. Maybe it's something in the Asgard water, but it seemed like there was always a fight to be had. I guess I needed the rush, something to keep me sharp, feeling alive. I was driven without fear or frankly much sense to hold me back. Got myself a bit of a reputation, and that ended up being a problem. This notorious bully I'd humiliated held on to a grudge and tried to track me down. Found out way too easily who I was and where I lived. Set out to teach me a lesson. We'll pick it up there when you progress further. Ready for a little more of my life story?
Continue.
I was in the fight of my life with the thugs who burned down my father's inn. Suddenly there's this sound, this flapping of feathers, and who should appear but Sigrun herself. Not yet queen, but by reputation, the best fighter the Valkyries had in memory. I was awestruck. She was confused. The violence, the mayhem she sensed, she expected to follow it to a battlefield full of honored dead, not a hideout in the slums. I apologized to her for not sending worthier souls to Valhalla, and Sigrun offered to take me under her very impressive wing. But we'll cover that part next time, all right?
I am listening.
Sigrun, mightiest of the Valkyries, saw me in action and thought I had potential. Wanted to train me in the ways of the sisterhood. But I wasn't so sure. A knack for violence is one thing, but serving a higher cause, taking on the responsibility of choosing the slain, me, Gunnr of Blackheart Alley? For once, I hesitated. I couldn't make myself believe it. But Sigrun told me to put everything out of my mind but the work. Mastering each new skill. Discovering what I was truly capable of through discipline and focus. Letting excellence be its own reward really opened my eyes. But we'll wrap it up next time, okay? How about we finish up my story?
I will hear.
Last time I was telling you how Sigrun helped me harness my anger and hone my skills. Training with her and my other future sisters, I never felt so challenged. Never felt such belonging. But part of me still couldn't believe I deserved to be there. All that community and purpose and meaning could be mine. If only I could master the one enemy I was afraid to face.
Yourself.
Damn right. I had to stop telling myself the story of all I could never be because of where I came from. When I focused instead on my intentions and my preparation, that's when I truly mastered myself. But I'm not telling you anything you don't know. And it's not as though there weren't more trials ahead, more to overcome and master. My point is, I get why you're doing this, and I truly wish you luck.
Thank you, Gunnr.
So Gunnr also comes to us directly from the sources, and we also find her in Snorri's Prose Edda. So let's start with the Poetic Edda and in the Seeress's Prophecy, which is a phenomenal poem. I've mentioned it, I think, in so many different videos. It is a really excellent poem in which Odin goes and awakens this prophetess and interrogates her, essentially, about Ragnarok. Anyway, she recites how the world comes to be and how it is formed, put into order, and how it eventually is going to come to an end. And in stanza 31, and I'm reading here from Carolyn Larrington's translation, it says, "She saw Valkyries coming from far and wide, ready to ride to the gods' realm. Skuld shouldered one shield, Skogul was another. Gun, Hild, Gundel, and Gerskogul. Now the generals' ladies are counted up, Valkyries ready to ride over the earth." And this is very much consistent with what we also see in Snorri's Prose Edda in a section that actually immediately follows the section in which Eir is first named among the goddesses as the best of physicians, where he talks then about the Valkyries. And this is again in that section called Gylfaginning. And it says, "These women are called Valkyries. They are sent by Odin to every battle where they choose which men are to die, and they determine who has the victory. Gun and Rota and the youngest Norn, named Skuld, always ride to choose the slain and to decide the outcome of the battle." And I should mention that Gun is kind of the anglicized version of Gunnr. So you actually also see, and I actually think this is really interesting in connection to the relationship between Gunnr and Sigrun. You see Gun mentioned in the second poem of Helgi Hundingsbani, in which the Valkyrie Sigrun plays a really significant role as the love interest of Helgi Hundingsbani, or the Slayer of Hunding. And here in stanza 7, it says, "Where have you, prince, stirred up war or fed the goslings of Gun's sisters? Why is your corselet spattered with blood? Why must you eat raw meat, men wearing helmets?" And again, this is Larrington's translation, and she says in the footnote regarding the goslings of Gun's sister, Gun is a Valkyrie, as are her sisters. The goslings of the Valkyrie are ravens given carrion to eat by the warrior. So there is actually within the sources kind of this interesting link between Gun and Sigrun that is picked up here as well in this game. And I think that's just about as good a place to stop as any. We are going to go into the story of Sigrun and Mimir for the next one. So as always, please let me know if you have any questions at all. thank you to Cleansed in Fire for providing this gameplay, which I would not be able to do without. So thank you for doing this for me. Thank you for editing it all so seamlessly into something that is really easy for me to work with. I am truly grateful, and I hope you'll all join me in thanking him for all of the footage that he's provided for me to work with. So, as always, if you have questions, comments, I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll be back again soon to continue on with Valhalla DLC. See you next time.